We welcome you to our introduction to sociology 2, and today the unit which we'll be doing today is the difference between the interpretivistic and positivistic sociology. So let's begin. The historical and philosophical background of interpretive sociology. Between 1880 and 1900, there was a dramatic growth in the natural sciences in Europe. Steady progress in experimental discoveries and technical advances led to an unrivaled dominance of the methodology of the natural science called positivism. We'll see that from the year 1880 to 1900s, there had been a dramatic change in the Europe, and there had been a concomitant achievement and popularity of the natural sciences, especially the different methods of science, especially natural science, which leads us towards objectivity. That is called positivism. It was popular everywhere, and people were getting into it. People were taking into this particular methodology as the most rampant and the most popular one. Not just natural sciences alone, but different branches of it were also getting popular by leaps and bounds. And there was technological advancement everywhere. People were learning to say that we need to take our oath by the natural science. Natural science had become the be all and end all of India, of the civilization, the global civilization around us. Branches of knowledge such as physics, biology, and chemistry had taken enormous strides forward, increasing their prestige in the scholarly community. As a result, the natural sciences had become preeminent in discovering certain truths about the natural world. And this gave the scientific method of positivism unparalleled authority over other more speculative methods of investigation. This paragraph will teach you how a kind of gap had been built between the natural sciences and the social sciences. Because the natural sciences went by the methods of objectivity. They were said that everything, every reality is objective. Therefore, it is bound by causal laws. And what you see around has to be matched and given a meaning to it. And that is an absolute truth. And this became the mantra, the Bible of the world, and people went by it. On the other hand, we shall see the social sciences, the comparatively softer sciences. They were not getting that kind of recognition or exposure in the society. Those sciences, the social sciences, were often abrogated and snubbed down as being speculative, imaginative, and contemplative. Therefore, we find that the growing gap, the growing difference, the growing wedge between the natural sciences and social sciences became longer and longer. And especially in the academic community, the acceptability, the sacredness, the sanctity of the natural sciences was unchallenged. It was uncompared to none of the other sciences, and social science could not get a footage for itself compared to the supremacy of the natural sciences. The decline of the historical and the philosophical sciences. As these advances took place, the historical and the philosophical sciences began to decline, and as a result, the authority which philosophy once had in referring knowledge debates between science and theory and in explaining the nature of reality began to lose its foothold. As a result, an open clash developed between the natural sciences and social sciences on the question of knowledge. So, the question, learners, the question which we are trying to ask is, so who won the debate? This ongoing debate that was going on between theory and science, and which science is more superior, and how do you actually get an information about the reality? What is the nature of reality, and how is knowledge formed about that particular reality? In every instance, we find that natural sciences was becoming more and more popular, and other sciences, especially the historical sciences, the softer sciences, the economics, all those subjects were losing their foothold because it was said that they could not give a scientific explanation, or they could not make an investigation of the knowledge around us, of the world around us. Therefore, the debate that we have started between the science and knowledge, there, the social sciences were beginning to lose their battle. This drew attention to the distinction between methodology of the natural sciences and the methodology of the social sciences. Many began to criticize the non-scientific nature of the historical and social sciences, such as economics, sociology, and political economy, seeing them as largely speculative and intuitive in nature. By 1885, a general crisis emerged in the legitimacy of historical and social sciences, and as a result, many philosophers began to re-examine the relationship between the scientific method and philosophy. We find, therefore, there was a growing distinction in the methods that were being allowed or used by the natural sciences as against the social sciences. And as we have said that, since natural sciences was gaining popularity, social sciences, on the other hand, was becoming prey to such rumors, such as those methods are speculative, those are contemplative, those are unscientific, and therefore they could not, stand their ground. They were losing the battle. And it was at this particular time that a band of philosophers started re-examining the relationship between philosophy and science, philosophy and method, because they wanted to find out whether the methods followed by the natural sciences were different for the social sciences, and how the methods of the social sciences were different from that of the natural sciences, and how a parity could be maintained, or whether it was all about distinctions and differences. So we find that a kind of a legitimacy had arrived, and the legitimacy that was, becoming popular among the natural sciences, and therefore there was a tendency, growing tendency, to club the historical and the social sciences as being illegitimate, and the crisis was there to continue for quite a long time. Especially, remember, learners, please remember the time span. It was in the from 1800s, 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s. This was the time, especially since 1880s. This methodological debate was going on and on and on. The Neo-Kantian movement, and by 1890, a movement based on the return to the work of Immanuel Kant emerged as a way of resolving the problem. Referred to as Neo-Kantianism, the movement was based on the re-examination of the relation between science and philosophy, and this called into question the validity of the scientific knowledge itself. By 1890, when this legitimacy was being challenged and the relationship between philosophy and science was being reimagined and reshuffled, at that point of time there was a movement gaining ground which we call Neo-Kantianism. Now, who was Immanuel Kant? Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher. Rather, he was an Enlightenment philosopher who was known for transcendental idealism, when he was trying to make a difference between what can be observed and what cannot be observed, which means those things that were speculative in nature. And there was a tendency when this clash was going on, this debate was going on, that people were trying to get back to Immanuel Kant's ideas to find out how he had shaped the formulation of the philosophical landscape. How did he think of the relationship between philosophy and science? And how was it that the framework of the social sciences can be developed? So, while the social scientists were trying to reimagine the relationship between philosophy and science, they had taken recourse to Immanuel Kant's work, and rather with a little remodification, and that was why we had been calling this movement as Neo-Kantianism. Remember one thing, while Neo-Kantianism was being formed, this movement was formed, they were challenging the very idea of scientific knowledge itself. I mean, the very sanctity, the superiority, the predominance, very extreme popularity of the scientific nature itself was challenged. The validity was challenged. How reliable and valid was scientific knowledge? That you claim that natural sciences are the be-all and end-all of everything. They are the pinnacle of reality. But can you really explain everything by science? Is it possible that the natural sciences will propose a method which will explain entire concepts around you in the empirical reality? How far is it true? That was the question that these philosophers of Neo-Kantianism were trying to throw. The term Neo-Kantianism then is used in the social sciences to refer to a diverse group of thinkers who participated in a philosophical movement in Germany in order to secure the legitimacy of the social and historical sciences and to engage in debates about which methods were more appropriate for the social sciences. So this philosophical movement in Germany was there to stay for a very long time, and people were debating upon this more and more, and they were trying to say that which method was appropriate for the social sciences and how was it inferior or superior to that of the natural sciences. We definitely can say that by 1880s and beyond, a whole new breeze was blowing, which had brought to us a new message of methodology, where we were questioning the methods of the natural sciences, which was never done before. The debate went on, and many of the participants in these debates, including thinkers such as Hermann Helmholtz, F.A. Lange, and Kuno Fischer, believed that a return to Kant would provide a solution to the problem of knowledge in the social and historical sciences. Two of the central thinkers of the Neo-Kantian movement, Wilhelm Windelband and Heinrich Rickart, believed that only two specific directions could be pursued to solve the problem. So this debate went on, and Kuno Fischer was there, and many others were there who were trying to find out what could be done to give legitimacy to the social sciences, since they were gaining ground. I mean, the natural sciences were gaining ground, and the natural and the social sciences were losing their footage. It was at this point of time that two philosophers became extremely preeminent at that point of time. Let us find out how or what are the courses that they had developed so that the legitimacy of the social sciences can be given in its true right. First was a need to search for and develop a theory of knowledge that related to how history and society could be subject to investigation. Second was a necessity of defining the differences in the subject matter of the natural and the social sciences. One of the first solutions to the dilemma related to the methods of the natural and social science, as was devised by Wilhelm Windelband. So, what did these thinkers try to do? They were trying to develop a way of investigating history and society which was never done so before. People were all busy, inquiring about the natural world around them. But what about the historical society? What about the society around you? That is also an empirical reality which must be studied in its own right. But why was it not being studied? This also concomitantly brings us to the difference in the subject matter of the social sciences and the natural sciences, and therefore from the subject matter we will go to the different methods, because the subject matters of the natural sciences and the social sciences were different. Naturally, a different methodology must be proposed for the natural science as well as for the social science, liberating the concept of method from the natural sciences. Wilhelm Windelband was a German philosopher and a historian who was a leading figure in the Neo-Kantian movement. He taught philosophy at Freiburg and is best known for applying Kantian philosophy to problems in the social sciences in a work that focused on the relationship between philosophy and history. So I gave you, brief profile of Windelband and how he was influenced by Immanuel Kant while he was trying to reimagine the relationship between history and philosophy. In 1877, Windelband went to Freiburg, where he began working on the problem of the connection between philosophy and culture. At the time, many believed the historical description of the society was impossible because history was neither a scientific discipline nor a science of law. Windelband set himself the task of outlining a philosophical framework in terms of which historical investigation could be scientific, and in this he attempted to liberate the concept of method from the natural sciences. This is very interesting, Immanuel Kant had worked upon this, but we had never thought that a scientific investigation of the society could be done, because historical investigation was suddenly being nullified. Nobody thought that historical investigation could be scientific, and nobody had ever tried to reframe the philosophical framework within which scientifically historical investigation can be done, because historical laws they thought were never possible, and nobody ever thought of historical investigation. They only thought of scientific inquiry and probing. It was for the very first time that society and historical investigation was becoming important within the paradigm of science. Windelband turned to Kant's writings to establish a philosophical justification for the social and historical sciences. The issue for Windelband was, could historical investigation make a valid claim to obtain objective knowledge? In reading Kant's work, surprisingly, Windelband found that Kant had explicitly laid out the steps of the natural sciences to secure valid knowledge. But he had excluded the historical and ethical dimensions of the human action from the sphere of legitimate knowledge. Windelband, however, believed that the historical and ethical dimensions of social human action should be the subject. We were talking about the different theoretical instances, and one of another instance which came in the debate between positivism and interpretive sociology was also George Hegel. Hegel's idealist theory of history had been criticized. By 1870, Hegel's idealist theory of history had been criticized and even discredited for its distinctly speculative theoretical stance. In addition, Hegel's method implied a split between the abstract sphere of the spirit in history and the concrete factual world of the historical observation. See, whenever Hegel talks of idealism and he takes a break between the empirical reality and the world of the spirit, then obviously we have this doubt. Then was Hegel trying to say that social sciences will not be able to capture the essential aspects and nuances and the flavor of reality, because he was talking about some abstract spirit? Windelband knew that in separating the sphere of the spirit from the world of concrete reality, idealist philosophy had abandoned any hope of explaining perceptible historical facts. This meant that the formulation of any causal laws of history would be impossible. So we found that in philosophy itself there was an error, there was an anomaly. There was a scope of idealist philosophy where they were talking about all speculative things, such that historical laws will not be perceptible to the concrete reality around us, and there will be a whole sphere of suspension, abstraction, which is divorced from the reality. And it is because of this idealist philosophy and its various nuances and fragrances that time and again social sciences had been termed as speculative, as not being able to capture the objective world of reality, etc. The natural and the social sciences were thus separate and distinct. And we had already been telling this for a very long time, that the subject matters of the natural sciences and the social sciences being different, we require a different methodology for the same. And therefore, the methodological differences will definitely come. The different levels of reality. Windelband took the position that the natural and the social sciences constitute, in fact, two different forms of knowledge, and that both types of knowledge simply describe different levels of reality. In the first type, Windelband argued there is a knowledge of facts and of the observable world, in which causes and laws can be abound and found in the concrete reality. Now see, learners, please make it very clear, there is nothing called superiority about the natural sciences or the inferiority of the social sciences. We are just trying to say that they relate to different kinds of reality. They make different kind of knowledge formation possible. Essentially, the epistemology and the ontology being different, nothing else. And therefore, when we are talking about the natural sciences, they abound a kind of reality, a level of reality, which is more objective in nature, which will have more of law-like specific structure, where causality is much more, and cause and effect can be very explicitly and overtly found, unlike the social sciences, which will not be such law-like, objective, or have such causal formations. And therefore, such causes and laws will be able to, explain the concrete reality in a more objective way. That is the difference, nothing else. This level of reality belongs to the realm of the natural sciences. But in the second time that Windelband reasoned, there is always the knowledge of human values and ethics. And this implies knowledge of an ethical realm consisting of the products of the human culture. including the pursuits of the actors and the judgments which they make in relation to the social world in which they live and act. This level of reality, according to Windelband, belonged to the domain of the historical and the social sciences. So the kind of level of reality that we are talking about the social sciences is more non-direct, rather indirect in nature. It talks about the value judgments, the ethicalities, the question of values, the pursuits of culture, and the ethical considerations, the interpretative understanding that human beings are born with. And that is a basic difference, learners, that is a basic difference which you must understand between positivism or positivistic sociology, which talks about the general laws, which talks about causality, which talks about the supremacy of the social science, of the sciences, natural sciences, because they follow the same method as followed by the natural sciences. For instance, experimentation, comparison. So where the things which you want to observe are more direct to your observation. But in the social sciences, those things that we want to observe are not direct to our observation. And, interpretative understanding says that the actions of the men are not important. The important is the judgments, the values, the responses to others on the basis of which individual actors take a decision. That is more important. So value judgment is becoming more important in something which we cannot see with the open eyes, something which is not externally visible. Windelband went on to reason that in the first domain of knowledge, judgments about the world are always in relation to factual states, and therefore observation and methods, whereas judgments are always about those subjects which are not objects, which are not directly subject to observation, such as human values, motives, purposes, morality. History and the social sciences are therefore bodies of knowledge which concern themselves with this realm of knowledge, as I had already told you. You want to observe such things in interpretive sociology which is not visible with your plain eyes, something which are not subjected to direct observation, such objects. For instance, as I said, your ethicality, your morality, your value judgments, your value preferences, your ideologies, your beliefs, your internal state of mind. So those things can be observed with interpretative sociology. While natural sciences were saying that we want to go for positivistic sociology, which is more casualistic in its form, more causal in its structure, more objective in its structure, more structured in its form. Interpretive sociology say there are many things which is beyond your observation. Many things which your five senses will not be able to perceive. For instance, intuition. For instance, certain gut feeling that you have. You're walking down the street, a girl walking down the street, and he somehow has a feeling that somebody is following him or her. Maybe he's not able to see who's following her, but then, is it within the purview of positivism? Will positivism be able to do justice to that? So these are the unstated things that we were trying to include in interpretative sociology. So Windelband made a leap from the methods of the natural sciences simply by stating that the social science study the realm of values and not the realm of facts. While the natural sciences investigate concrete facts that are related to the physical world which are unchanging, the social sciences investigate norms or standards of conduct which may change from society to society. See, the subject matters change over the time. Natural sciences talk about the solar system, which doesn't change over time. Then there's a static way of studying them. But when you're talking about the society, you talk about the values which change over the time. I give you an example. Today morning when I was coming, I saw a woman in the bus and she was a kind of a dwarf woman. So she had some, special needs. But there was no separate chair for her in the bus. She was sitting in the normal chair. Why am I saying this? Because once her penny, she was supposed to give a currency to the driver, it fell on the ground. It was quite difficult for her to stoop down on the ground and, take back the currency. But her co-passengers did not help her. So might be the values are eroding with time. And when you study the people with special needs now and the one which you have studied 10 years back, the strategies will have to be different because values that we cherish and will be cherishing now and that we have cherished, say, over a decade before has changed over the days. Therefore, in positivistic sociology, you are studying things which are static in nature, whereas in interpretive sociology, you are studying things which are more changing, more volatile, more ductile, and more malleable to the influences around you, which doesn't happen in positivistic sociology. In the natural sciences, we go for the production of general laws and the explanation of events by observation and by deductive methods. Since in this case, the aim is to show that empirical reality conforms to the assumptions which theory makes about the structure of the physical world. Theory looks for confirmation of reality, and this believes that reality conforms to it. So there's always a generalizing tendency. When you go for natural sciences, see, what you do is you propose a theory. You make a hypothesis about a theory. Then you go to the field to match the presumption with the reality. So you will always look for confirmation to the reality. You will always want that your presumption that you have drawn, the hypothesis that you have drawn, will actually match with the reality. So you're looking for commonalities, you're looking for generalizing capacities. But that doesn't happen in interpretive sociology, especially for the social sciences, which look for inductive methods. In deductive methods, we start with the hypothesis, and then we go to the individual cases. But in the inductive cases, what happens? Inductive research, what happens? We start with individual events. Then we, go to the field. And from there, we deduce a theory. But in the inductive sociology, we deduce a theory beforehand. And then we go to the field to test that theory. So there is a reverse order. So what happens? In the interpretive sociology, we always want to look who has been left behind. What are the anomalies? What are the people who haven't matched with our research design? Let's find them. That doesn't happen in the positivistic sociology. There, you're always looking for generalities and you want to match your results with the theory. So, as I've said that inductive methods are there where we move on observations and information gathered about the event about which concepts and theories are formed to explain the event. And Windelband thought that the natural sciences were thus nomothetic or law-giving. As I told you, that in the nomothetic or law-giving structures, we are more concerned about the law because we are talking about causality. You want to take a law-bound situation. You are not concerned about the individual individual discrepancies, about the individual anomalies which is going around you. Some people around you not getting the cash transfer program, not happy with the program, you just spell them out because it doesn't come to your formula. It doesn't come to your probability sample. Those people can be just ushered out. They can be just banned out. But that doesn't happen in the social sciences, which are more interpretive in nature. And therefore, we talk about the idiographic method, which is about peculiar individuals, about the peculiarity of every individual. And you stand before a Montessori and there's written that every individual is unique, every child is unique. And that has been remembered by the interpretive sociology, that every individual is unique. And to tap that specification, to tap that uniqueness is all about interpretive sociology, because we are talking about his value judgments, his individual preferences, because that individual man is a product of his culture. So he cannot be generalized with the other 5 people sitting around him. So as I say, that there's a essential difference between the idiographic and the nomothetic, which must be taken into consideration. So, knowledge was not the product of a straightforward observational encounter with the natural world, but was always preceded by human judgment, which involved the interpretations each time it encountered the world. So, as the nomothetic people of the positivist world says, that 2 + 2 is 4. If you see somebody crying, then absolutely there are reasons for him to cry. Might be she is very happy. That is the reason she is expressing her tears. So, there you judge the value judgments of the people. You want to penetrate deeper into the self and the psyche of the individual. You want to take into account the interpretative understanding of the people, how he interprets that situation. Just as we have said in symbolic interactionism, you always interpret the cues from the others and then you respond to the situation. That happened. That interpretative understanding is there in between individual giving me something and I reacting to it. But this, this bridging is not there in the natural sciences. It is just 2 + 2 = 4. To resolve this ongoing debate, Weber began to turn his attention to the theoretical disputes in the social sciences, and Method and Straight, I'll tell you, it's also there in the PPT. Kindly go through the works. Method and Straight was a methodological debate that went on for a very long time, and that was participated by all the researchers, and especially the German thinkers, who felt that this debate between positivism and interpretive sociology is there to go for a long, long time. And this is what was giving a new shape to our understanding of reality and the realms of knowledge formation. Thank you. I'll conclude here.